All right, guys, we're back on the Kevin and Fred show, and sorry to do this to you again, but I am the guest again. So, a little bit different format. You might have remembered last year I ran a copy of the episode or the live interview, if you will, that I did with my good friend and couple time guest on this show, Dustin Runyon, for his live weekly interview that he calls Fired Up Fridays. And so he did a different, a little bit different setup this time where we really didn't talk a whole lot of business. We did some, but we went 2 hours, so we went deep. And the thing about Dustin that you should know is like he knows me well. He's one of my best friends for sure, and so he's able to ask questions that he's got inside information, I guess. And so it enabled him to ask some really good questions that caused me to think, and hopefully the question, not so much my answer, but his line of questioning hopefully will make you think as well. And so it's long, it's 2 hours, so we're gonna divide this into two parts. So you are either listening to part one right now or part two. I don't know, because I'm probably not going to record a second intro for this, but just want to let you know how much I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. If you want to find out more about Dustin and kind of what this Fired Up Fridays thing is, go over to firedupfridays.com. That's firedupfridays.com, and check out what Dustin's doing. He's not just my friend, but he's a mentor. The guy's helped me a lot, and probably more than I could even express. And I just love the guy, and I hope you enjoy our conversation.
All right, guys. I am super excited for this Fired Up Friday. I have one of my best friends in the whole fucking world, Kevin Kaufman, on the call with us today. This dude has been right before I got on the call, I was talking to my team. I'm like, he was one of the first people in real estate when this like that I don't know, gave me permission to be me and gave me permission to just be whoever I wanted to be, because fucker wears a Dodgers hat and dunks wherever he goes and just is himself, and he is unapologetically himself. And so in an industry that sometimes is a suit and tie and a mask wearing industry, you were one of the realest motherfuckers out, and you brought me in, and you were kind to me, and you were good to me, and you were never made me feel like you were above me, even though you were. And so I love you, dude. Can we welcome Kevin Kaufman?
Love you, brother. Thanks for having me on. Back on, I should say, for Marathon. I don't know if you saw the chat or in the group, but like Fred brought up a super valid point. Like, there's Fred, my business partner, with the details. The shit I'm never thinking of is like, what if I have to pee again before 11 o'clock? Like 2 hours. I'm like, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous to do this, but let's go.
I know. What is that? It's I don't know if we talked about this last time, but it's so funny. When you walk into Kevin and Fred's office, you definitely know who Kevin's office is and Fred's office is.
You don't even have to, like, literally don't ask. Just look at the two desks, and you will know which one is mine and which one is Fred's. Like instantly, no asking required.
Yep, because Kevin's desk is a shit show and Fred's desk is perfect.
For the record, it's an organized shit show. I know where things are in the mess, and it's a fucking mess, no doubt about it.
How long you guys been together?
Fred and I started officially working together February of 2008. So is that 14, just over 14, about 14 and a half years ago. So just after, I hadn't even been licensed for a year at that point.
Dude, have you guys been obviously I know you're always real, but have you guys ever really gotten into it?
No.
Like ever, even once?
Not even once. No, not even once.
Have we
probably done something that annoyed the other person? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But we've also always been the type who, like, we've always just been the type of people like, fuck, I'm just gonna leave him alone right now. Or I don't actually care about it. That, like, if it was like a business thing, it's like, I actually don't care that much about it. I'm just gonna fucking let him run with it. Mm-hmm. And if he runs into a wall, then we'll just fix it. And if it works, then great for everyone. So literally, no, we've never, like, literally, which sounds weird to even say, but yeah, 14 and a half years and never one like scream or yell or like.
What do you attribute that to?
I think, I don't know. I hate to say this because, like, this in itself I think has a lot of ego attached to it, but there's just not a lot of ego. Like
Uh,
we're both way more attached to fucking making it work than we are to being right. And we are two guys that I think I can say this very fairly and honestly, we both like to be right a lot. It's probably both of our challenges. It's certainly one of my challenges. And but for whatever reason, we decided early on, right for us was like a business worth having. It was like a business worth owning. It was getting somewhere that we wanted to go. And that's I think that's always been and has remained our North Star. Um I don't think I know. Like I know that's a big factor.
yeah. So two people have a strong desire to be right about a lot. Is it like and is it like like you do you both hold each other to a high level of respect?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, there's no doubt about that. And I'm sure that, I'm sure if there was like a therapist here or someone, they would be like, oh yeah, that's the factor, or maybe it's the
Yeah.
how intertwined our families and lives are, but
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like that's the beginning outside of the fact. Um, you know, I would just say like my hunch is like there's just a lot in there. I think we're both way more attached to, I mean, even to put it bluntly, I'm more attached to my bank account than I am to being right. Like
Yeah.
I want my life to be bigger than more than I want to fucking be right about whatever I might be arguing with somebody about.
How much do you think pride costs people financially?
Uncalculable, incalculable.
Yeah.
I can't even think of the correct English word for it.
Yeah. It's like what is pride costing you? And if you could somehow find a way to like monetize or not monetize, calculate that into dollars, it would probably be pretty crazy.
Oh yeah. I mean, think about like it's easy to look at in sports. And I think probably aging myself here, but anybody who's 40-ish and up would know this, especially if you like sports. But like the Dallas Cowboys, who at one time had the current best coach in the league. They were the best team. Like they were on a run. And because Jerry Jones has to be right, him and Jimmy Johnson couldn't get along, and they had to end it. And like the Cowboys had to go back to mediocrity over
Mhm.
someone's willingness, or like someone's more attached to being right than they were to winning, right? And winning. So for I guess yeah, when I said bank account, you could just say winning. Like I want championships, things like that.
Yeah. Um, do you think was this like a conscious thing that you guys had together, like as a partnership? And I know you get this fucking a lot, but I see so many like dissolutions of partnerships and so many things not working out and so much. Were you consciously not prideful, consciously respectful? I mean, are this all
Oh
conscious or was this like God doing work?
no, we were consciously trying to like not go bankrupt. That's what we were
Yeah.
doing. Like we're like when you go back to where we started, dude, we were both like, fuck. I like to say we didn't have our backs to the corner. We kind of had our backs to each other, and we're both
Uh,
fighting off creditors and bills and life, all that comes with years of stupid decisions in your 20s. And so when we started working together, um, we were just both so committed to getting out of a hole and financially and business wise and getting ourselves some breathing room, that by the time we did that, we looked up and we had a business and we kind of had something
mm,
going.
yeah. Did you, as a kid, like growing up, did you always want to win? Like, was that like in you? Did you always
Oh
want to be
yeah,
rich? Did you always want to have money?
100%, always. And I don't know if that's just because I grew up poor, and so it's like so like that's the cliche thing, but like I used to even joke about it. I used to tell my mom like, and I, by the way, I fucking hate golf. I know you love it, bro, and I'm happy for you. I fucking hate that game. And so but I used to tell my mom when I was a kid, I'm like, and this is so not PC anymore. I'm gonna say it anyways. And if you judge me for it, fuck you. But I used to tell my mom, like, I'm white. I think I'm Republican. I didn't even know what it was then. And I'm going to be rich. I have to learn how to play golf. Like I used to say. And then it turned out like golf is stupid. I so hate that game. So frustrating. Anyways, so yes, like I was determined from the get-go to how I just wanted a bigger life. Like I wanted more than what I had experienced to that point.
Yeah. Like when you say poor, like what do you mean by poor?
So most of my upbringing, my mom was single. She was married to my dad, and then I had a stepdad as well. She had a second marriage for a while. So mostly single family. I'm not sure that my mom ever made more than $40,000 in a year. And so raising two hungry, growing boys, uh, like 35, $40,000 doesn't annually pre-tax doesn't really go that far. So when I think of like, if you said, tell me how poor you were, for me, I go back to like little kid Kevin. I think of like, fuck, I don't get any school clothes this year, or I only got like one pair of shorts and one t-shirt, but not shoes, or stuff like that. Like that's what I think of. Like we always had a roof over our head, clearly always had food, but we didn't have a whole lot extra. We didn't have vacations. We just didn't have a whole lot extra.
Mhm.
And so I always wanted the extra, man.
Where did
you
you
know me.
what so what example? Yeah, I know you now, but like then, like what example did you have of extra?
I didn't have anything of extra. Like there was nothing. All I had was a desire for more. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have, that's what I'm saying, is we had no extra. There was nothing left over at the end of the month. I remember one time, so I grew up in Yuma and we're up here. You guys, for those of you who are Phoenix natives, you might remember the Price Club long before Costco. And so like once a year, my mom and stepdad would come up here and then go to Price Club. And somebody they knew had a membership or whatever. And they had this skateboard there. Like for whatever reason, my brother and I were on this trip and they had a skateboard at Price Club. And I wanted this skateboard so bad, bro. And it was like $100 or something. And I was like, I was full blown skater kid at that point in my life. And I remember dude, I wanted it so bad. And I could tell that my mom wanted to buy it for me. And just literally like, if we bought that skateboard, that meant there was like $100 less worth of food or electricity for the month or
Yeah.
whatever. And so
Yeah.
she said no, like for a damn skateboard that was like, I just, I'd earned it, whatever. Like I was a good kid. I was paying attention. I was doing my thing. I could tell she wanted it, that she also wanted me to have it, but we couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
like that's a moment I think of like, you know, even something small like that. Like I just decided earlier on, I'm not living like that. Like I can't have that. I'll find a way
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah. I was gonna say, when did it start to manifest into like actual different behavior in you?
I mean, I think it already had, like by that point, like, dude, I was already going to baseball card shows and wheeling and dealing with baseball cards, selling shit. Like I would just like like if I could find a way to buy something and then sell it for more, or make trades for baseball cards that then go sell this more expensive cards, things like that. Would always do that. And so I got a job the minute I turned 16. So like from the get-go, I was always looking for a way. And then I had to, I think like a lot of other people, I had to try a lot of stuff and do things. And then prior to real estate, I don't know what it was, but I found a way to get paid more than my education would command. And I remember, I remember the first time my salary went over $40,000 a year annually. And then when it hit 50 and like 60, and it's like I had friends with like master's degrees. And granted, this was, late 90s, early 2000s. So the pay scales weren't, where they are today. And I was like, dude, I got friends with master's degrees and they have a lot of school debt, like that don't even make three-quarters of what I make right now. And so I would always find a way to like maximize whatever I could. And then, but I mean, truthfully, it wasn't until I got into real estate and actually started a business that I figured out how to start to make money.
Yeah. How were you making like 40, 50, $60,000 a year? What were you doing?
Oh, dude, so when I first moved to Phoenix, I got a job at a call center for Bank One. It was at the time it was Bank One, and it was doing credit card collections, like early front end collections. It was basically customer service. I think it's where I really learned to sell. Um, and 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 then I worked my way into this like support position in the company through like this program they had. Like so then I worked for the team that like ran the auto dialers for the whole call center, and then for other call centers. And then I just parlayed that into one job after another. Like I literally, and then like I networked and parlayed that role into just another pay raise, another pay raise, another pay raise, another job, a different role. And then it wasn't, I remember I actually I was worked for GE had acquired the company I was working for. And at the time, GE still had all the shine on it. You know, it was still like, like the company in the United States, or not even just the United States, the world. And I had turned down an offer for a decent sized promotion because I had already gone back to school. And I was like, because I'd figured out like I probably can't work for someone else. I'm not really capable of following rules that don't matter and things like that. And so I turned it down. I remember I pissed off a lot of people by that, but by that time I was like, I just know that I can't work for someone else, no matter how much they paid me. Even if my salary, at that time, if you'd offered me $100,000 a year, I'd probably would have really considered it, but I probably would have said no.
Yeah. Is that an authority thing?
It's probably probably go back to that need to be right that I mentioned earlier. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't want to follow your rules if your rules don't make sense. Like,
Yeah.
Fred used to say there was this guy that he used to listen to that he would say the definition of religion is man-made rules that lack purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And that just resonated with me. Like I don't do well with rules that I don't see the value in them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there's a certain way I have to behave and act, if I have to say certain things to make people feel a certain way rather than like actually execute on something, like I'm out. Like I'm out. Can't do it.
Yeah. How much do you think the cold calling? Because when I first went into my second job when I moved to Phoenix when I was 18, I was cold calling. I was hammering 800 calls a day, and I always say it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. How much of that was like how much was the cold calling? You said you learned to sell. How much of that like was transcended you into real estate, and how beneficial was that for you?
So, what's funny is I have cold called for real estate, but not a lot. But in doing the collections for Bank One, and then kind of building a little bit of a career prior to real estate in the call center world, banking, call center world, credit world. What that really did is that actually set me up for short sales, which is obviously how you and I first connected, right? Because I understood what happened is when I got into real estate, then my third transaction ever was a short sale. And then Fred and I partner up a few months later, like officially, and all we're doing is short sales. I understood who I was calling. So like when I called the 800 number at Bank of America or GMAC or Wells Fargo or whatever, I literally knew the person I was calling in some cases, like actually physically knew the person on a first name basis outside of work in some cases. But more importantly, I understood the mindset of the person I was talking to. And so when they said stuff that didn't matter, like it never really bothered. I mean, it bothered me. I yelled at some people. I might have lost my temper once or twice. But the point is like, I already knew the game. I had a cheat code because I knew what they were thinking. I knew what they were doing, and it allowed me to beat them.
Well, I was going to say, when you said I never knew you worked for Bank One. I was like, dude, you fucking worked for the enemy.
I did. Oh, I used to say like I worked for the devil prior to real estate. And then I decided to start helping people. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
Chase
the
the
short,
devil, in case you're wondering who I'm referring to. Chase Devil. Jamie Dimon, terrible person.
Yeah, because in the short sale days, I mean, they were the devil. That's so funny. How do you sniff out a rule that doesn't make sense? Like how is that worked out in your, like, how is that in your life? Do you use that in business? Do you use that in your life? Do you use that in your personal life? Like, how do you sniff out a rule where you're like, this is bullshit? Is that intuition? Is it principle? What is it?
No, I think it's intuition. Like, here's the deal with principles. And I probably don't use the word the way you use the word. Cause you always force me to think when you use that word. When I hear principle from most people, I hear this dumb set of rules that they have that they don't actually think about. And so like, I think it's intuitive. Like sorry, I'm about to offend at least half the people on this call, but like wearing masks for the last 2 years. There's no scientific fact for it's like, well, hold on a second. That doesn't actually make sense. Literally does not make sense. So maybe no. So like I'm just the guy that like for the last 2 years, when I walked through the airport, like I or anywhere else that required masks, if I chose to go there or had to go there, like not really had to. I guess you always have a choice. Like I just didn't put it on until someone called me out for it. And then even at the airport, it's like only to get through security and then only to get on the airplane and then only while I was on the airplane, right? Because like your rule doesn't make sense. Like there's no logic behind it. And so I'm not going to follow it. Or another example that won't offend as many people is I used to I never forget the scenario. I sent an email one time, and for those of you who've known me for a while, you know that I forgot that I can't work for somebody, and for like 6 months I was a regional director for Keller Williams Realty for a franchise region, and I sent
I
an email
remember
one
this.
day to and on the email, and it was I replied all. I just fucking replied all. I didn't even initiate the email. However, but on that email was Gary Keller, Mo Anderson, Mark Willis, I don't know, Mary Tennant, a few other people, the executives, right? And then like 3 or 4 of us. And I got in trouble. I got in trouble for not putting people in the right order because I didn't list Gary first and Mo second and Mark third and then Mary. I literally got reprimanded, and I went, okay, exactly, Dave. I went, what the fuck? Literally, and I'm like, okay, I can't play. I'm out. And so it's natural. Like something just like doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't jive. And I don't know if I'm actively listening for that stuff or I'm just not actively blocking that stuff out. But when I see something or hear something and I don't love the way it feels, like I take note of it. And depending on who you are or the scenario, like I have more grace to ask why. And in other scenarios, I don't. And I'm like, fuck you. Like, I'm not doing that. Literally, like I'm literally just not doing that.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
but I think it's just I think it's a lot more instinctual than it is anything else.
it's one of the and I don't know, you'll tell me now, but for how different you and Fred are, like for how different of, we'll go back to the desks, how meticulous, how on purpose he is, and how, methodical he is with things, and how you're I'll figure it out type. You do both share that.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw a friend yesterday. I don't For those of you who may know of Streamline Business Solutions, there are bookkeepers. But prior to that company starting, David Patiglio, the founder, and his wife Christy Patiglio, we knew them separately. In fact, before they even knew each other. And Christy used to work with another agent that Fred and I knew, and she at one time described Fred and I as she's like, you guys are definitely similar but different. She goes, it's like you guys are in different corners of the same brain because you
Yeah.
don't think the same. You don't actually always show up the same, but you do arrive to usually the same conclusion.
What I was gonna say, what blew me away when getting to know Fred early on was his ability to throw the middle finger up too. And I was like, oh goddamn, Fred.
Yeah.
He'll
He, he's more so than any. So Fred, like this is what we joke about. Like I have less of a filter, as you notated by the how many times I've said fuck already, 28 minutes in. And so I have less of a filter. Fred is a lot judgier. He just doesn't always say it out loud. And I say that kind of lightheartedly, but I mean that even shows up on behavioral profiles.
Well, yeah, when Fred's like, I fucking love you, Dust, I was like, I did it. Fucking did it. uh Uh, yeah. And by the way, Gene, if you're on here, let's edit that. Let's edit that mask and that mask comment into like a 20-second clip, and we'll make sure to get out that to the ethos.
We'll make sure Spotify puts the COVID-19 blue thing above it. Yes, absolutely.
uh, there's Gene. That's funny. So, what has we talked about this a little bit, but what's something in like the past 6 months you've really been like working on or pondering on or changed your mind about? Or I've noticed a little shift in
Everything.
you. What's that?
Everything.
Everything.
Uh,
Okay.
dude,
Well,
like when you say,
what's everything?
um, I mean, how can I answer this question? I don't know. It was so coming into the beginning of the year, things were going really good. Still are going really. I mean, they're great. In fact, it's almost weird. You and I have talked about this many times. Like, I'm always like a little leery. I don't let it slow me down, but like when things are really good, I'm like looking for the right hook, right? I'm
Yeah.
looking for it. And so things have just been going really good. And then I was starting to feel this already, but then in end of February, I lost my grandfather, who I was very close with. Very like shock, surprise, um, like so surprising. The night before, literally the night before he died, uh, we were talking about how he probably be alive for another 15 years, if not more. And then just so that was kind of like, oh God, what's happening. And then I had an uncle die like 2 weeks later. So I don't know if it's a combination of like that, because it'd been a while since I'd lost anybody close. Um, and I had a lot of losses earlier in my life, like when I like late teens and early 20s, of friends and family members. And so it'd been a while since like any kind of substantial loss. And so I don't know if that was like a jolt or what, but I found myself in March and April just going, I'm kind of bored and I'm not sure what to do about it. Like
Mhm.
have um I have some things I set out for, and that's great and I love it. And also I'm not real sure what to do now. I'm not sure what to do with myself now and what I should be doing next. I just felt a little lost, I guess. And so that
Mhm.
forced me to really explore, I think, a lot of things internally. Um
Lost as
and
a
so,
person, lost in business, lost as a father,
yes.
lost as a husband, lost or all.
No, maybe a little bit of all, but definitely the on the business side. Like definitely on the business side. Um, I love
Because
what I do.
what was your business look like at that time? Because you're with EXP and you like what's your business look like at that time?
When you say look like, do you mean like what are my activities, or like what's the
Like
income? What do
no,
you mean?
like at that time when you were lost, it's like so you have a real estate team, correct?
Boring, just boring. Like here's the deal. Um, and I when you do something consistently for a long period of time, and you're especially if you're committed to doing it certain ways, like I hate to use this word, but like there's some autopilot features to my business, for me anyways. And those all sound great, and they are, and it's not all great. Like not everything's all good, right? Everything, it's like there's this balance to it. And so my business looked like it doesn't actually require that much of me every week. And so business wise, I was feeling a little bit of like, well, where do I go uh put more effort into? What's going to be the biggest return? What's financially, and then also like for me as a person and for the other people. And then like, well, maybe I should be doing these other things over here. So there was just like a lot of searching that happened for the first half of this year. And I
Is
mean, I ended up taking a lot of time off.
was it like almost like so much leverage that was the lost like were you lacking purpose? Were you lacking like you know what I mean by that?
I don't know if it was purpose. It was definitely lacking excitement.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that you have to have excitement, although I like it. Um, and I think also part of it is like, so there's like some, from like a financial standpoint, I surpassed whatever goals I had ever dreamed of as a kid a long time ago. And then also from like a business practicality standpoint, like I literally, like, Dustin, if I showed you this, I did this exercise with someone that worked for Frank Klesitz. Frank owns Viral Marketing, and he was helping me with our Facebook group, Next Level Agents. And one of the things that we were going to do just to kind of build the community was offer these kind of goal setting calls. And that's a bad word. We didn't even use the word goal setting. It had more to do with like, what do you want out of life? And, what are you drawn to, characteristics, things like that. So he's like, you should probably do one yourself before you like go offer this to 25,000 people. So I was like, that's really good advice. And so I did. And so I remember I wrote it all down, or I said all the things. Peter, his name is Peter McDonald. He asked me all these questions. He wrote it all down. And oh, Crystal just asked a really good question, and yeah, we should go there in a minute. So he asked me these questions. I answered him, and he sends me this Google Doc, shares it with me. That was in February of 2020. So yeah, so just think about like where the world was, and then think about like the next month. Like I forgot about that. Like the world fell apart theoretically. Like we all thought it was going to end March of 2020. Then the mask saved us, and so that was a joke for those of you keeping score at home. And so what happens is like I then later on, like I reflect on it earlier this year. I actually had forgotten about that till late last year. And then earlier this year, I'm reflecting on it and I'm reading this part of it. It says 5-year vision. And I was like, fucking living that to 100% to a T already. And I texted Fred. I was like, dude, I know my problem is I got exactly what I asked for 2 years ago. And now I'm fucking bored with it. But it's literally verbatim what I asked for. And so that really forced me to think like, well, what am I asking for? What am I asking for out of life, out of my, business, relationships, all of it. Right. And so I don't know. I think maybe I've just gone more introspective a lot. I know you said in the last 6 months, but I think also probably in the last 2 years that, I spent a lot more time thinking than ever before. And sometimes thinking about things that are really practical and sometimes not so much.
Do you
I
still
don't even
feel
know if I
lost?
answered your question. I
No,
really
no.
don't know if
I've just noticed like I guess that would be it. I've just noticed you've just because we're close friends, like you've looked at things that maybe you haven't looked at before, or you're going into different parts that you maybe have not even not looked at, but just maybe even didn't even know they were there. And
Yeah.
so you said you were lost. Go through that process. Like, how do you have you found yourself again? And or like for people like on for people like, I think this is something that a lot of people talk to me about it because I coach with people, but I think there's a lot of people that feel lonely in this space of like feeling lost. What did you do? Like, what were some of the things you did to kind of find yourself again?
I think I kept asking questions, which is what I do now. Like, I think that's my natural behavior is I'm inquisitive. It's why I have a podcast. I just literally like to ask people questions and learn. And so a couple of years ago, I realized I had to ask myself more questions and then like fucking sit and wait on the answer. And so, so I started doing that. I think also too, really recently, like since the end of June, Curtis Johnson shared that book with me, Diet with Zero. And I think maybe part of the reason why it's been so impactful for me is like the timing of it and the things I've dealt with. And so I mean, I do feel like I've quote unquote found myself, especially if we're talking about like 6 months ago versus today. I do feel that way. I feel clear, not just clear on where I'm going and what I want, but what I do sort of daily. And then more importantly, like what I want out of the last 46 years of my life.
What were some of the most powerful questions you were asking of yourself?
What do I want and why? Like, first of all, and like, not just like, what do I want? So you and I have both been in a culture of like, where the definition of wealth is doing what you want, when you want, with who you want, for however long you want. And that's a bullshit answer. I get it, but that's bullshit. It's surface level because no, like, okay, so if you can actually do what you want, when you want, with who you want, like who is it? What exactly is it that you're doing? Like, and so I had to ask myself the question of like, well, what is it that I want to do? And who do I want to do it with? And for how long? And all of those things, like just trying to go down another notch, as opposed to just like the surface level answers of like, hey, if I, like when I accomplish this, I'm going to have that. Like, I had to start asking myself more questions. And I think too, having kids, made it easier for me to like really think of like, well, what are the things I want them to think about when they're 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 years old too, based on what I'm doing right now. And so just literally kind of digging into some of those details.
Yeah. And
Does that answer your question?
no, yeah, yeah. Just I guess so. The question thing's so powerful. I love that. And one of the powerful things, and I don't know if anyone on the call heard it, that is fucking like amazing, is that, and what we have to do and what I have to do is once we ask a really, really hard question, just because we don't get an immediate answer doesn't mean that we should ask a lower level question. It's like you said something, you're like, I'd ask a hard question and I'd sit on it for a while.
Yeah. And I'm impatient. My leading behavior trait is impatience. And so that's been a struggle for me. So like I literally had to like learn to go, well, no, this is an important question. So I'm gonna fucking sit with it. If it takes me 6 months to answer it, I'm gonna sit with it and keep asking myself this question.
Yeah. And then did you ever, what I find with me, if I have a really hard question, then I'll start to ask some of my close people around me, those questions, just to get different insights of different.
All the time, 100%. Like I do that constantly.
Yeah. So what's the biggest thing you've changed your mind on?
I changed my mind on recently. I think that the biggest thing I've changed I'm trying to think of this is, I don't know if this is going to be I don't know if I would accept this answer if I was asking the question. So if it doesn't satisfy you, challenge me on it. I think the biggest thing I've changed my mind on recently is I've had this desire. I felt like there was no net worth goal. It was as much as possible. It was absolutely, so like, it wasn't like, oh, I want to be worth $10 million. I want to be worth $25 million or whatever. And now there's a goal and it's a lot lower than I thought it would be, because the goals have gotten way more. Like the goals are spending money on experiences and living a certain way. And so that's something I've changed on. I think part of it is too, like going back to this earlier part of our conversation where I grew up with really nothing extra, no money, kind of lower middle class. And then I got to a point in my life where I'm like finally started making money, and then I'm really good at spending money. I'm like really good at spending money. And then I got to the point of like, well, that's stupid. Like I really got to make sure that I'm making good decisions here. And so then I got into this mental frame of like, I have to accumulate as much money and assets as possible. And so then I started changing my behavior for that. And there's a lot of good in that. And then I realized, like, as I read that book, Die with Zero, it forced me to actually go in and do some calculations and come up with some hard numbers and realize like, well, actually, like, and this is not like I'm not giving myself a license to spend like a drunken sailor, but it forced me to go, well, actually, if you just do XYZ, which you're already well on the path to, you're already there. Like you're there, you can do that in this period of time. And you can then go, and if you force yourself to come up with these other things that you want out of life, you can go experience those. And so I've changed my mind on net worth. I think so to boil it down, I would say if you asked me financially what I was optimizing for up until June, it was net worth. And what I've decided I'm going to optimize for is net fulfillment, to steal the term from Bill Perkins. Decided to optimize for net fulfillment.
What fulfills you?
They're different things. Oh, so like that's like part of the book, and part of the exercises that I've gone through is like thinking about experiences with kids, spouse, friends, coworkers, things like that, and literally like attempting to time bucket them, as well as it's like, I don't know exactly what's going to fulfill me the most, but I'm going to give it a try. And like right now that looks like, so I played it. You might be aware of this game. I played a sport growing up called Over the Line, or OTL. And, but I never played in the World Championships, which is in San Diego every summer while I'm there. And I was like, it just dawned on me this July. I was like walking in the coffee shop with my oldest daughter, Sophie, and we were talking, and she's like, "What is that?" I told her, I was like, "I need to play in that." So it's like just going and doing that. So think of a bucket list, but a bucket list is not, it's not the right word, because a bucket list is like, I'm going to check these things off before I die, which could be in a year or two. And granted, we could all die tomorrow. So I'm aware of that. But it's about making sure I'm having these experiences, right? Like I know that in 10 years, over the next 10 years, like my daughter's gonna, both of them are gonna start driving. My oldest daughter will have graduated high school already. So like, what are the experiences I want to have with her or them, both of them, before they're out of the house? And before they're through high school and before they're both double digits or teenagers, like just literally bucketing it down to things like that. Everything from like family vacations to like this selfish thing I talked about of like playing OTL, or haven't been snowboarding since Sophie was 1. So 8 years, almost 9 years. Just doing things like making sure I'm doing things like that. And those can all change. So it's going to be like a constant evolving exercise.
Yeah. And I see this a lot in people that I work with, and just a lot in general, like people from like 30 to 50 years old, for whatever reason, seem to struggle with fun so much. Like, why do you think that is?
You taught me that.
Yeah, but why do you think that is?
I know for myself, I think that we get caught up in what we have to do. We have commitments. We have a business or a job, and we have a spouse and kids and people that depend on us or whatever. And but then we have, which then puts us into these roles, right? They put us into these roles of like, this is who I am. And like, I actually think the worst thing, it's so funny because like the word identity is, for whatever reason, like a trap word these days. But like, I think the worst thing, one of the biggest problems we have in the world is we all have this fucking need to identify as something. And I say that as a guy who's identifying as a Dodger fan right now. And I'm not letting that go. But we all have this need to identify as a Republican or as a Democrat or as a realtor or Keller Williams realtor or an EXP realtor. Like, and I think that we get these identities, and the less time we spend thinking about why we have that identity and why we're doing that, then like those more stuck we get into those roles. And that I think as you grow up, like you just, the roles of fun, like just, we don't think it's important. We're taught, I think from a very early age, that fun isn't important as you grow up. And
Yeah.
like the truth is, it is important.
I've never met somebody, truthfully, if you got like in their heart and asked them like, do you like to have fun? People, I've never seen anyone say no. No, I don't enjoy fun. But it's so funny because I look at it this way. It's like the more you prioritize yourself and your own things that fulfill you, like over the line championship, going to San Diego, going to the Dodger game downtown, the more of these things that fulfill you, I feel like then your kids get to experience a more fulfilled dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And
100%.
and your wife gets to experience a more fulfilled husband. And
Yep.
so by prioritizing yourself, like the byproduct of that is like you're a better you for everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, 100%. And I think it's easy. I think it's easy to go, yeah, but then you're just selfish and you only care about you. And that requires no thought. Like
Oh
that lacks,
wow.
that requires, that lacks nuance, which is easy and lazy to not think about how important that is. Like if you can't think about threading the needle between the two realities of, like, we all know it, especially you and I, who grew up in small towns. So like we know the guys that really aren't really doing a whole lot more different than they were when we were 16 drinking beers in the front yard or in the desert. And they're still doing it now in their 40s, and that's their life and responsibility, but they have a lot of fun. We like to not realize that there's a nuance between that person and the person who's go 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 all the time and always in the role of husband, dad, mom, wife, dot, whatever, employee, employer, and serious all the time. Like if you, to not think about the nuance is just fucking lazy. Like it's literally mentally lazy.
Mhm.
And it's so important to having a fulfilled life. I think.
I'm stealing fucking 100% of all that.
Yeah, take it.
But
I'm
like,
sure I did not make it up.
no,
I'm
I'm
sure I
stealing
didn't
all
make it
that.
up. I just repeated what someone else said at some point that I listened to.
Well, it's so good. It's like certain things like, and I say it on this call all the time. It's like life isn't this or that. This or that requires no fucking thought.
Yep.
It requires no thinking. And I love the term of threading the needle. That's really good. And that's really finding the integration of these things in life. And I think that's really where fulfillment lives is in the integration of these things.
Yeah, dude. It really, yes. Yeah. 100%. There's literally no doubt in my mind left about that.
Yeah. So do you feel like you're prioritizing yourself more, less, or the same
As opposed to what, like 6 months ago, a
whenever
year
you were
ago?
lost? Yeah.
Oh, in a way less, like in the micro less, because like dude, I think I worked like 4 days between the months of June and July.
Mhm.
I just by design did that. Like I decided a couple years ago, like if my kids are not in school, I just don't want to be at work. That's like the goal. Um, and so, but like that's a microcosm of like, yeah, like I just didn't have much. So now I'm in a way like I'm a lot more clear on what I'm doing work wise, which is a little bit less time for me theoretically, but I am being more purposeful with my time for me, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
Totally.
it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. I didn't want to miss this, and I tagged this because I know you wanted to answer this. Is Crystal's question that she had earlier on here, where she said, "Does anger fuel you to have a chip on the shoulder to get motivated?"
Yeah, it always has my whole life. Like love being the underdog. I love being the guy that when I first got my real estate license, the guy that owned the brokerage that I joined, I met him like first day and he looked at me and he did this. I was wearing shorts, by the way, that day and flip flops and a t-shirt. And I could just tell I was like, this motherfucker thinks I'm not going to sell any real estate at all. And it annoyed the shit out of me. And that's great for me. Like I can get up and go with that. And a good friend of mine who Michael Burnoff, I
Mhm.
had and David Queen, he was there with us in the room that he probably doesn't remember because he said it to me. But David was in the room. There's like 5 of us in a room one day with Michael, and Michael was teaching us about something, and he said something to me to the effect of, and this was September of 2020, something to the effect of, yeah, that's great. Like you guys do great with the chip. He's referring to me and Fred, like you guys do great with the chip on your shoulder. Like you get mad and then really it's worked well for you. Like it's worked really well for you. But like maybe there's just a smarter way to do it now. And ever since that day, he was like, maybe you don't need to be mad about this anymore. Like maybe there's just a smarter way. And I was like, fuck. And so what is I think maybe the heart of like Crystal's question, whether it's her and I have to probably talked about this offline. If not, I know I shared it with some people is like, so I spent all the way up until literally that day, really being good about being motivated by a chip on my go ahead, count me out. That's good. I love it. Underestimate me. I'm cool with that. I'm really am good. Um, to maybe I shouldn't deal. Maybe I'm not going to worry about that anymore. And then I got to the point of like, I think I stopped caring about a lot of things that I used to care about because it would motivate me and maybe even agitate me and get me going. And then I was like, oh shit, now I don't know what's going to get me going. Cause I'm not mad. I'm really not mad about much anymore. Like I'm not, I just don't give a shit even more than I did before. And including the things that I used to let agitate me in a good way.
Mm.
So I think
So
that's
so
might
so
actually
then
be the root of my problem earlier this
yeah,
year. Is
I
like
was
I had nothing to be mad about.
yeah. Well, were
Nothing to
you
be
really
mad
mad? So like I will never like I don't ever have the
about.
desire to get rid of the chip on my shoulder, but it's the competitive spirit of wanting to win. It's like, does that make sense? Like if
I
we
want to
play
be
pool,
mad.
like if we play pool against each other, like I want to beat you and I love you. Like I'm not
You're
mad. It
you're
doesn't like
going to because pool's dumb, just like golf.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
you're
okay.
good. You're
Well,
gonna
over the line then. Okay. Fuck.
Yeah. So it's so funny. Like, so Jeff just said you're turning to Gary. Fuck you, Jeff. But like I used to let there like Gary Geller did something that was very personal and mean and attacked um my family's ability. Like it's harsh. And it was real easy for me to use that for fuel for a couple of years. Like real easy. And now I just don't give a fuck. Like I just don't, I'm like, what a moron. I can't believe he did that. I can't believe he'd even put himself in that position. But good for him. Right. And so that's a great example of something I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm just not mad about it.
Okay.
I don't need that to get me motivated
Yeah,
to go recruit or to prove that I can still sell real estate or whatever. Like, and that's just an example. There's plenty. Like I've let people like there's always a villain, right? I've always had a villain, right? At some point in my life. And so that I just decided to stop having them.
yeah. I think it's how you define the chip on the shoulder,
Yeah.
right? It's like, um, yeah, like I just like winning, and I love that about me. Like it's
Yeah.
that, I guess that's the chip. I mean, if that's the chip, then that's chip. And then you said villain, where actually I don't want to bring the guy up, but like there's one you told me, you're like somebody always like needs a fight. Like I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
necessarily. Yeah.
That's good and bad. Like if you don't learn
Yeah.
to channel that, like, and I'm still competitive. Like if we go play pool, like I'm not playing pool because now I know how, so I'm not going to do that until I
I'm not.
practice.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not big.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but so like I want to win. I'm competitive. I want to, I don't, I usually won't put myself in a position to play a game against someone or something if I don't think I have a chance to win.
Yeah.
And so I like that part is still there. Like there's that competitive part. I just don't have to be mad about it. I don't have to be mad that like
Yeah.
this guy who's like a famous pool player snubbed me and said I don't know what I'm doing when I shoot. You know what I mean? Like that just doesn't. I've
Yeah.
decided
That's
to not let
unhealthy.
that be the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
and that's
good.
where I was. Like that's where I think that's where I grew up a lot of. Like I was like, well, I'm gonna make it anyways. Cool, you
Yeah.
don't like it, I'm gonna make it anyways. You don't like that I wear flip-flops, I'm gonna make it anyways. You don't like it that I
Yeah.
wear shorts, I'm gonna make it anyways. All of those types of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay, can we mute? David, we mute everyone that's not Kevin and I. um, so you stop trying to like what I guess like prove yourself or like prove it to people or
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to prove. And I probably never did. I probably never did, but I felt like I did, or I used feeling that way as a way to motivate myself, I guess.
Mm.
And now that's just not how I motivate myself.
How do you motivate yourself now?
Uh Net fulfillment. I now I'm a lot more clear on what I want out of life, and I'm really clear the fact that I think I got 46 years left.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I look at that as like where you said it made you angry. Like I look at it as like fun.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? Like
yeah,
like when I saw you like like okay, just let's see the flip-flops and being successful with shorts on. It's like I look at that as like a fuck that guy. I look at it like, oh, this will be fun. Like this is fun. This is exciting, right? Like
yeah. And so like, and you would play into that, like that is the way you would show up. And I guess rather than you go, yeah, you know what? Now Dustin is like, oh, this is cool. And he like, maybe I made him realize there's one less rule in life he has to follow. Or
totally.
one less dumb society standard that he has to follow. Instead of looking at that, what I would do is I would look at the other person who was like, you can't fucking put this guy on stage. You can't let him, like, he shouldn't be teaching.
Uh,
He's not the expert. He can't even. So I would focus on the guy that was like the doubter, judging me based on whatever clothing or shoe footwear, as opposed to me going, yeah, but like I just gave Dustin one less thing to fucking worry about in life.
totally. Like I love the beating to your own drum. Like it was just
Yeah.
like it's why I left my old company, is because I had to beat to their drum. And then I have you as an example of somebody who's just beaten to their own drum, or our buddy, Cheplak beaten to his own drum, or like, I just like the guys that just, and gals that
That
just
guy's
like,
drum is a trumpet, by the way. Like that's how weird he is. I love him
but
for it, by the way.
yeah, yeah. But like, I just love that unapologetically. And okay, here's what I'll say, Kev, is like, unapologetically myself without being bitter.
Yeah,
And I
that's a good
think
way.
when we're angry and when we're like pissed off or whatever, there's this bitterness to the I'm me, motherfucker, right? It's like, this is who I am. It's like, haha, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then there's the like, no, I'm just going to be me. And I'm going to show you that I can do it with flip flops on or shorts on. I'm going to show you I can do it my way. And it's just like, it's like, it's just not bitter. I don't have any bitterness attached to it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's
I
like,
think that's a great way of putting it.
when people first start setting boundaries in their life, they learn boundaries. I always see them set bitter boundaries.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can set boundaries without being bitter. Like,
Yes. Those are the easy ones to set. Those are the easy ones to set. And maybe those are good starters. Like that's like a training wheel. But then we gotta like, I took too long to take off my training wheels. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, no, what do you mean?
I mean, like I would use bitter boundaries.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and then like, that's cool because like setting a boundary is good and healthy. And especially in real estate, for those of you that claim to work 24/7, fucking stop that. Set a boundary around your work hours. And then, so a bitter boundary is better than no boundary at all, is what I mean by that. And so then so think of like the bitter boundary example you just gave as like, to me, that's a training wheel. Cool. That's better than no boundary at all. And then I'll move to maybe a more healthy boundary.
Yeah. I feel like there's 3 steps to boundaries. There's bitter boundaries. Then there's just boundaries where you're just conscious of your boundaries and you have no bitterness attached to them. And then there's just fucking, the third version is just living.
Yeah.
Like, I just live. Like it's like, I know what I like, know what I don't like. I'm just observant of the things and I'm just living in it. And I'm going towards what I wrote down here with you is like net fulfillment. Like, yeah. That's cool, man. It's been cool to, it's been so cool to watch you be so introspective and like, so, you're just an all-in dude. And so when you
much.
You are, dude. And it's so awesome because like when you get fixated on something, it's like you will not stop until it's like, I figure this fucking thing out. Have you always been that way?
Yeah. My buddy, Patrick Woods posted this meme a couple of years ago. And I was like, oh yeah. And it was like, I'm either like completely obsessed or not even a little bit interested. There's no, like, I'm like, yeah. That's definitely me.
That's funny. Growing up, like, is that how you were as a kid? Were your parents like that? Or who were you more like, your mom or your dad?
Oh, probably more like my dad. I think he might have been, no, not might have, like, he definitely was like that. Like, but at least with like sports teams for sure. No, he was like that with everything. Now I think about it, I was pretty young when he died. I was like, he died when I was 20, 21, 22. And so at any rate, definitely more like my dad in that sense. But yeah, like I can't remember not being like that. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. You've said that you've said death a lot. How like in the past, like your dad died when you were, said 25?
Yeah, it was 2002. So that would have been what, 20 years ago? So then I was 24. So I'm getting bad at math, apparently. Fuck. I do know what 3% is.
3% of fucking everything.
Everything.
How do you handle death?
Oh, I don't know. I just do like anything else that's bad that happens. Like it shows up and like you figure it out. Like there's 2 things. There's 2 ways to respond, to things that happen. And it's like one of those ways is like you figure it out, or one of those ways is you don't. Like, and I've just been like, well, I got to wake up tomorrow and I still have to do these things. And so I'm just going to, whatever, dude. I don't know. I had three close friends die uh within a year of each other. 1 year and as a teenager. And then some close family members, and of course my dad. And so I don't know, maybe I learned to deal with it earlier on. And I don't know, I don't have a strategy for it.
Yeah.
I really don't. But I think maybe I just had a younger realization that like people do die.
Mm,
It's just like it's inevitable.
yeah. Yeah.
So pretend.
What is your thoughts on death? Like, are you scared of it? Do you think about it often? Are you fearful of it? Like,
I would so I would say a year ago I was definitely fearful of it compared to where I feel today. Um, and it's probably just more of like, I don't know, I don't think about it a ton outside of like the giant poster I look at every day. So I don't know, I just think of it like it's coming for all of us no matter what. I think the only I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it outside of the using it to motivate myself to stay on track for net fulfillment of like, am I going to go have this experience? Am I going to have the Disneyland experience with my daughters? Am I going to have the Hawaii experience with family members, or the cruise experience with extended family, or you know, the, uh, snowboarding experience in Utah, whatever, fill in the blank, right? I'm just like, okay, well, I look at it as more of like a countdown to make sure I do experience things, before then.
yeah. What's the poster you look at every day?
So it's called, some people refer to it as like life in weeks. Um, it's a poster, and it has, in my case, like, so it's got 90 years worth of dots. Each dot represents a week, and each line of dots is 52 weeks. And
Mm,
so just every week you just fill in a dot.
mm,
And so so if you go look on my Instagram, I don't know if I put it on Facebook or not. I've got like a picture of it where it's like, partially like I just colored in. It's colored in one
mm.
circle a week.
Yeah. How many weeks? How in the die with zero? They basically try to in the book they talk to you about like what you're gonna live to, right? Essentially.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Um, how have
It's a
you? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's like, it's a model.
Yeah.
It's a framework for thinking about that, and using the intersection of
The
money,
author. What's that?
health. Bill Perkins,
Yeah.
and it's about, it's using the intersection of money, health, stages of life, and to factoring all those things to get like, here's the deal. I think if I give you guys this example, you hear it. Every Warren Buffett is revered in investing circles, right? When you think of investing, I don't think anybody on this call would actually change places with Warren Buffett. What a fucking terrible life. Like, there's no way I'd want that life. He has more money than almost anybody, and drinks a lot of Diet Cokes, has a lot of Big Macs, and we lost the host. And yet I wouldn't change, there's no way I'd change places with that guy. There's no way. He's optimized for net worth. That's awesome. Good for him. I think there's a lot more to life than net worth. Yeah, Dave, maybe he's empty, maybe he's not. Like, but the thing is, I know that what he has is not what I want. That's most
Mm,
important. Like, maybe it is, but like, literally think about that. Like, there is just no way would I want to live in the same house I bought 50 years ago, drinking a diet, 10 Diet Cokes a day, and eating a McDonald's every day, driving the same beater car, whatever. Like, that sounds stupid. What a waste. Like, what a waste of resources. Like it's like, it makes me think of that Oscar Wilde quote, like, anybody who lives within their means lacks from creativity, or they're just lacking creativity, right? And so, and again, it's this nuance, going back to what I said earlier about like, don't have lazy thoughts, is of this, like, probably live within your means. Like, that's really intelligent, right? Like maybe don't spend more money than you make, and also maybe don't save, invest,
whatever, sock away more than you're ever going to possibly be able to spend. Like, how much more good could you get out of it? And more importantly, like, let's using Mr. Buffett as an example, only because it's, he's so outrageous and so on the, he's such an outlier. Like, let's say today he decided, you know what, this is dumb. I've got more money than I can ever spend. I need to go experience more life. So let's say he decides to go on a cruise. And on that cruise, there's going to be stops at all these ports. Do you think that dude's getting off at those ports and he's like going to go out and explore like the caves or, where, like, no, he can't, he's physically not able. He's past that stage of life where he's even physically capable of spending money on things and experiences. And to me, that's just, not worth, not worth it. Not worth it at all.